for joining us today. Happy Monday. Great to see you. I'm Veronica Cruz. I hope you had a great weekend. Here are the top stories that we're tracking for you right now.
Former President Trump is gearing up for more litigation in the coming weeks as his legal team awaits two possible indictments.
We expect that the target letter and the work that the grand jury continues to do will meet that threshold of seeking the facts and holding people accountable.
U.S. employees across various professions and skill sets are walking off the job in 2023.
I think in most cases, they're going to get most of what they want.
We will withhold our labor July 31st at 12:01 a.m.
On Tuesday and Wednesday this week, the Fed Board of Governors will sit down in this building behind me for their monthly meeting, and they are expected to raise interest rates again.
A couple of percentage points doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it can mean thousands of dollars.
But prices are not going to come down just because they bring inflation down.
Just to even go into the grocery store, meat is like $10, $12 just to get a pack of ground beef.
Now we begin this hour in Washington. 1 week after former President Trump posted that he is a target of the DOJ's January 6th investigation, all eyes are on special counsel Jack Smith as to if and when that indictment is going to happen. It would be Trump's third indictment. He has already been indicted on the alleged hush money scheme in New York, also in the Justice Department's classified documents case. And that case was the first time a president was ever federally indicted. National correspondent Avajoy Burnett joining us now live from Washington. So Avajoy, what are we watching for? What are we waiting for in this week?
Hi, Veronica. Well, all eyes are on the Department of Justice to see if there will, in fact, be another indictment against the former President Donald Trump. Remember, it was last week that he posted on social media that he was issued a target letter saying he is a target in this investigation after the January 6th insurrection. So everyone's watching and waiting to see if there will actually be an indictment in this case. There's a lot of activity that's going on around the courthouse last week. There was grand jury activity that was going on, but we won't know exactly when there will be an indictment, if there will be such a thing. But keep in mind that all of this is happening as the former President Donald Trump is the strong front runner for his party's nomination. There was a new poll that came out over the weekend from Fox Business News, and they said in Iowa, he's 30 percentage points ahead of his closest competitor, that being Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. So we spoke with a Republican strategist about this and the possibility of having this person who is so far ahead of his other competitors dealing with all of these other legal issues as well. And here's more about what he had to say.
When DeSantis had some missteps and kind of failed to launch, it brought him back down to earth a bit, and now Trump really stands out as the dominant figure. And the good news there is that it means that voters will look at other candidates and look at the full range of people as alternatives to Trump.
So that is one potential investigation that we're looking at, the January 6th Department of Justice investigation. And then, of course, there is the other DOJ investigation in Florida revolving around those classified documents. Last week on Friday, the judge put out a new trial date for this. It was initially supposed to start mid-August, but now it's been pushed back to mid-May of next year, right in the middle of when all of those primaries will be going on. And I also spoke with Mike Ricci about the possibility of having someone who has been convicted of a crime, if this actually goes to trial, also being the Republican nominee.
We are absolutely, in terms of the grassroots of our party, we are very much, a lot of this has just felt like a you break it, you bought it kind of journey where, the grassroots, the base of the party wanted Trump. They got Trump. He lost. They wanted more Trump, and that's where we are. And it's an unfortunate situation, and it's not just. I don't think it's just unfortunate for the party. I think it's unfortunate for the country that we would get to this point.
And if you watched any of the Sunday morning shows, you were most likely able to see some of the people who are running against former President Donald Trump. They're really trying to walk a very fine line of not being too critical of the former president, but also condemning the Department of Justice. One person, Vivek Ramaswamy, said bad judgment is not the same thing as a crime. So you really see them really trying to court some of the voters that really are all the way 100% in for the former President Donald Trump, but also trying to not upset them, Veronica.
Yeah, really interesting to see what's going to come next in all of this. Avajoy Burnett live for us there in Washington. Avajoy, always appreciate it. Thank you. So half of the 14 announced Republican candidates have qualified for a primary debate next month, and they include Trump, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, former Vice President Mike Pence, and South Carolina Senator Tim Scott. Now, the other two candidates are tech entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy and former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, and that debate is going to take place on Wednesday, August 23rd, and it's going to happen in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. In the meantime, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis created a firestorm by suggesting that slaves benefited from slavery because they were taught useful skills. Florida's state school board unanimously approved that controversial comment be taught in schools as part of Black history. Now, DeSantis brought the ire of many, including Vice President Kamala Harris. He's accused of trying to change the history of slavery while running for president of the United States. Let's get you right out to national political correspondent Kevin Strilly, who joins us now live from Washington. All right, Kevin, let's go ahead and go over what exactly has happened here and talk about not just the reaction, but the fallout.
Well, it's been significant, Veronica, because for Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, he's made anti-woke a campaign slogan of sorts and leveraged what he feels is an asset in the Republican primary for his time in the governorship as Florida governor. But specifically, these are policies that he has advocated for quite some time, even dating back to his time as a House member here in Washington, D.C. I want to pull up for you precisely the line that's drawing so much criticism this morning, in which the Florida's new curriculum, state school board approving new guidelines unanimously, new standards, including teaching students, quote, how slaves develop skills which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit, end quote. Now, for his part, DeSantis trying to distance himself from that line, telling CNN last week that he was not the individual who proposed and wrote that line, but these are his policies, especially at a time when he has been so at the forefront of criticizing what he perceives to be advocating for what he perceives to be anti-woke policies. I want to play for you what he told CNN. Here he is.
They're probably going to show some of the folks that eventually parlayed, being a blacksmith into doing things later in life.
So that's what's happening on the policy front. Now it's on a collision course with the politics, because for former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, who has truly made criticizing former President Donald Trump one of the pillars of his presidential campaign, he's now sharpening his attacks against DeSantis, who's polling in second place overall by most accounts in various caucus, primary, and general polls as it relates to the Republican primary field. Take a listen to what Christie said on the Sunday shows over the weekend. Here he is.
Governor DeSantis started this fire with the bill that he signed, and now he doesn't want to take responsibility for whatever is done in the aftermath of it. And from listening and watching his comments, he's obviously uncomfortable.
Christie sees an opening to try to draw a sharp contrast at the first presidential debate for the Republicans later this month. It's also going to be notable to see how the other candidates polling in single digits target DeSantis, who is weighing a campaign shakeup after a very expensive, emphasis on expensive, political campaign launch that has failed to gain much traction and the return on investment from the donor, conservative donor perspective. And then finally, there are other candidates who are likely going to weigh in on this on that stage, perhaps most notably Nikki Haley, as well as Senator Tim Scott, a Republican running for president, who is the only black senator for the Republicans in the United States Senate. Veronica?
All right, Kevin Strilly live in Washington. Kevin, thank you so much.
Thank you.
United Nations Command initiating a conversation with North Korea about the American soldier who has been detained. Private Second Class Travis King left his tour group last Tuesday and then crossed the border into North Korea. Now, the day before, U.S. military officials escorted him to an airport customs checkpoint. He was supposed to fly to Fort Bliss, Texas for possible further discipline after serving 2 months for an assault in South Korea. King never boarded that plane.
First is the primary concern for us is Private King's welfare. The conversation has commenced with the KPA through the mechanisms of the armistice agreement.
Now, South Korea says North Korea fired another missile into the sea this morning, and that might be in response to the U.S. sending 2 nuclear submarines to South Korea in order to stop those actions. You can take a deeper dive on this story and a whole lot more online. Check us out, Scripps News, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Threads. Straight ahead on Scripps News Live, the temperatures are heating up and so are the protests. Why experts have been calling this the hot labor summer. Also, the Federal Reserve is still working to tame inflation and could raise interest rates again this week. We're going to take a look at why a hike in rates doesn't necessarily bring prices back down again. Also, we'd like to hear from you. You can always give us a call on our Scripps News Viewer Hotline, toll free. That number is on your screen. It's 1-833-4-SCRIPPS. Feel free to share your comments and your story ideas.
I've been putting off getting life insurance, and I'm not getting any younger.
Have you been thinking about getting a life insurance plan but just keep putting it off? Was that a yes? Then this message is for you. I'm David Denowitz, and I know the importance of life insurance. And that's why I'm here to tell you it's not too late to get the coverage you need.
If you're between the ages of 45 and 85, you can get a policy with a benefit of up to $25,000 and rates available at $5 a week. The phone lines are now open. Just call 800-354-6059.
And your acceptance is guaranteed.
I have a pre-existing medical condition. Is my acceptance guaranteed?
Yes.
Can I get accepted without a medical exam?
Yes. If you're between 45 and 85, you can't be turned down for this guaranteed acceptance life insurance regardless of your health. Plus, there's no medical exam and no health questions, and rates start at just $5 a week. Remember, if you're between 45 and 85, you can't be turned down regardless of your health. Nothing's more important than family. So call now, pick up the phone, and get guaranteed acceptance life insurance today.
Just call 800-354-6059.
I'm 72 and on a fixed income. Is my acceptance guaranteed?
Yes, your acceptance is guaranteed and your rate can never go up for any reason. You can't be turned down regardless of your health. There's just one simple question. Are you between 45 and 85? If you answered yes, don't wait another minute. Call now.
The call is absolutely free and there is no obligation to enroll. Just call 800-354-6059. That's 800-354-6059.
Municipal bonds don't usually get the media coverage the stock market does. In fact, most people don't find them all that exciting. But if you're looking for the potential for consistent income that's federally tax-free, now is an excellent time to consider municipal bonds from Henyon & Walsh. If you have at least $10,000 to invest, call and talk with one of our bond specialists at 1-800-465-8465. We'll send you our exclusive bond guide, free, with details about how bonds can be an important part of your portfolio. Henyon & Walsh has specialized in fixed income and growth solutions for 30 years and offers high-quality municipal bonds from across the country. They provide the potential for regular income, are federally tax-free, and have historically low risk. Call today to request your free bond guide. 1-800-465-8465. That's 1-800-465-8465.
This week is going to be our defining moment in the Teamsters Union. It's going to be the defining moment for labor. We've organized, we've strategized, now it's time to pulverize.
That is the head of the union representing UPS workers, and he certainly doesn't sound shy about moving ahead with a strike that could devastate the U.S. economy. The union and the company have 1 week to reach a new labor deal to avoid a walkout on August 1st. Now, this is just the latest in a series of labor disagreements that we've seen so far this year. Hollywood actors and writers are on the picket line right now. Our Lauren Magrino breaks down what some have been calling the hot labor summer.
From entertainment to service industries to unhappy graduate student workers, U.S. employees across various professions and skill sets are walking off the job in 2023. Their demands unique to their respective jobs, but economists say they share a common goal.
Wages have not improved, at least not substantially. So in a sense, this is long overdue.
Dr. Anthony Carnevale is a research professor and director of Georgetown University's Center on Education and the Workforce. He says there's a reason for the hopefully temporary employee exodus, a movement now being dubbed hot labor summer, where people in various professions are pushing for better pay amid rising costs and record profits for many businesses.
Employers have held the upper hand for a long time. The way economists say it, which is what my training is capital has become more and more power, labor less and less powerful.
Potentially next to join the growing chorus of unhappy U.S. workers, hundreds of thousands of UPS workers. UPS and its unionized drivers have until July 31st to reach a new labor agreement and avert a strike. A strike that could deal a devastating blow to not only the company, but the U.S. economy. One major U.S. consulting firm putting the cost of a 10-day UPS strike to the U.S. economy at a whopping $7 billion.
All of a sudden, you're talking about sectors like national defense and aerospace production being very affected. You're talking about companies, farmers are going to be getting around to go into, harvest season. Well, guess how a lot of these parts get shipped from central distribution centers to, forward dealers that fix farm equipment. They get shipped by parcel.
Another major reason for labor strikes across the workforce, Dr. Carnevale says, unions have lost their punch.
Unions have been declining steadily for a long time. They lost their power largely because of globalization and technology and the decline of manufacturing.
With film and TV production currently at a standstill, and the threat of a global supply chain crisis that could rival that of the COVID pandemic.
We've organized, we've strategized, now it's time to pulverize.
Will fed-up workers come out on top and have their demands met?
I think in most cases, they're going to get most of what they want because what they're asking for, American employers can't afford. The shift in wealth between workers and management.
Lauren Magrino, Scripps News.
So talks between UPS and the union are expected to resume this week after breaking down earlier this month. The union head says the two sides have agreed to most of a new contract, but they still stand apart on a few issues, including pay for part-time workers. A new contract offer is on the table for American Airlines pilots in the meantime. The airline has agreed to raise its contract offer by more than $1 billion, totaling about $9 billion in incremental compensation and benefits. Now, the offer also includes a pay raise and a ratification bonus, and it all comes after United Airlines agreed to give its pilots up to a 40% raise. But the Allied Pilots Association says Americans' new offer still isn't good enough. The CEO's goal is to ratify this new agreement next month. Well, the nation's top financial leaders are expected to raise interest rates when they meet again this week. It's all part of their ongoing effort to fight inflation. National political correspondent Stephanie Liebergen has the details for us.
On Tuesday and Wednesday this week, the Fed Board of Governors will sit down in this building behind me for their monthly meeting, and they are expected to raise interest rates again. And while that makes borrowing money more expensive, it could mean good news for your savings. The Federal Reserve has two main goals: maximize employment and and minimize inflation. And the only tool it can use to achieve those goals is changing interest rates.
When you raise interest rates, you slam on the brakes of the economy because you make it more expensive to borrow money for any reason.
In June, the Fed decided not to raise rates, citing the positive trend in job growth and unemployment. But the board is expected to raise rates this time around. At the beginning of the pandemic, the Fed dropped interest rates to near zero. In March 2022, it raised rates for the first time in almost 2 years. Fast forward to today, interest rates are just over 5%, and that increase impacts car loans, credit cards, mortgages, and more.
And while a couple of percentage points doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it can mean thousands of dollars over the life of a loan, particularly when you're talking about something like a mortgage.
The Fed's rate hikes do seem to be helping the economy. Inflation has slowed in recent months, but prices on gas, groceries, and other necessities are still high.
If the Fed's policy is having the impact they hope, it slows this price growth, but it doesn't necessarily turn it negative. So that means you might not see prices come down on some items when you go to the grocery store.
The goal is to slow inflation long enough so increases in wages can catch up. But there is a positive side to higher interest rates, and that's in your savings.
So at the same time that interest rate increases make it more expensive to borrow things, interest rates also create really great incentives for us all to do what Ben Franklin and our moms and dads told us to do, which is save today, because a penny saved is a penny plus interest that you've got in the future to buy other things.
This meeting will be the Fed's last one before their summer break. The official announcement of this month's decision will come Wednesday at 2 o'clock Eastern. Stephanie Liebergen, Scripps News, Washington.
Now, the Fed raised interest rates 10 times between March of 2022 and May 2023 before taking a break to evaluate the effects. This week's hike is expected to be 1/4 percentage point. Coming up next on Scripps News Live, Twitter's Bluebird is flying the coop. What Elon Musk is saying the new logo, the letter X, symbolizes. Also, back-to-back blockbusters hitting the theaters this weekend. How Barbie has been setting records with her big screen debut.
Between the red and the blue, there is gray.
Out there is what's known as the gray zone, the no man's land between the Ukrainian and Russian armies.
Warriors on the edge, waiting to fight.
This is a passageway to get between their positions.
From here, will you get orders to advance?
The Gray Zone, tonight at 8/7 Central on Scripps News Tonight.
Welcome to the place where people go to learn about their Medicare options before they're on Medicare.
Come on in. You're turning 65 soon? Yeah. And you're retiring at 67?
That's the plan.
Well, you've come to the right place.
Now's the time to plan ahead. Learn about an AARP Medicare Supplement Insurance Plan from United Healthcare, and how a plan like this helps you take charge of your healthcare with lower out-of-pocket costs. Here's why. Medicare alone doesn't pay for everything. Your deductibles and copays could add up to hundreds, even thousands of dollars a year.
Everyone's a little surprised to learn that one.
Adding a Medicare supplement plan helps pay some of what Medicare doesn't. And that could mean fewer surprises and more predictable out-of-pocket costs. Call United Healthcare and ask for your free decision guide. Or talk with a licensed insurance agent or producer to learn more about plan benefits, options, and rates. Medicare supplement plans let you choose any doctor, any specialist, anywhere in the U.S. who accepts Medicare patients. You don't have to deal with any networks or referrals. This kind of plan also goes with you anywhere you travel in the country. If you're turning 65 soon or over 65 and planning to retire, find out more about the only Medicare supplement plans endorsed by AARP.
Thumbs up to that.
Remember, the time to prepare is before you go on Medicare.
Don't wait. Get started today.
Take charge of your health care. Call United Healthcare for your free decision guide and learn more about lowering your out-of-pocket Medicare costs and seeing any doctor who accepts Medicare patients.
Oh, and happy birthday or retirement in advance.
How does Klein Inspector get among the most big verdicts and settlements of any law firm in the country? Because Klein Inspector is an award-winning team with 5 doctor lawyers, the most of any firm in the United States. And that's why the New York Times calls Klein Inspector a powerhouse law firm. So if a defective product, motor vehicle accident, or medical malpractice caused a catastrophic injury, call Klein Inspector.
I've been flying for over 36 years. In all of my experiences, I have never seen so much pressure on a system as I've seen now.
Monster demand, staffing shortages, and possible relaxing of important safety measures.
Could have had devastating consequences with precious lives lost.
Scripps News breaks down the question, is it safe to fly the friendly skies? A Scripps News special report. Air pressure, airlines under fire. Wednesday at 8:30, 7:30 Central, only on Scripps News.
Welcome back to Scripps News Live. So there's now an X marking the spot that we all once called Twitter. Owner Elon Musk changing the logo from that familiar blue bird to the letter X today. It's just the latest example of Musk revamping the social media site after buying it for $44 billion last year. National correspondent Stephanie Sandoval explores what it all means and what other changes that we might be seeing in the future.
Yeah, it's the latest change to Twitter. Over the weekend, Twitter owner Elon Musk announced it's ditching the blue bird and going dark, sporting a new logo, an X. He gave Twitter users a glimpse of the new logo yesterday. It went live early this morning on Twitter's online website. Now, when you search x.com, users are redirected to Twitter. Some have reported a glitch, though, saying that x.com actually takes them to a GoDaddy site instead. The new logo was seen on Twitter's headquarters in San Francisco. Musk tweeting a photo in celebration of the change. Since the Musk takeover, Twitter users have seen a multitude of changes, like one being only able to read a maximum number of posts a day for unverified users. And if you don't want any of those restrictions, you'll have to pay $11 a month for a subscription. With a subscription, users can do things like post longer tweets and videos, edit a tweet up to 5 times within a 30-minute window, and of course get that iconic blue check mark, which for some is now yellow. The company says the present and future changes to Twitter are going to revolutionize how we all interact with each other. On Sunday, Twitter's CEO tweeted, "X is the future state of unlimited interactivity centered in audio, video, messaging, payments/banking, creating a global marketplace for ideas, goods, services, and opportunities." Back to you.
All right, Stephanie, thank you for that. So the color pink took over movie theaters across the country over the weekend as Barbie hit the big screen, but Warner Brothers was seeing green. Barbie sold 155 million in tickets at theaters in the United States and Canada, and another $182 million overseas, and that shattered domestic expectations. Analysts said at 110 million. The Greta Gerwig blockbuster set the record for the highest opening weekend for a film directed by a woman. Congratulations. And then there was Oppenheimer, which brought in $80.5 million in the United States and Canada. 200,000 people bought tickets to see the double feature with Barbie. I missed it, unfortunately. I'm Veronica Cruz. Thank you so much for joining us. For the audience leaving us right now, your local programming is up next. Remember, you can always check us out on ScrippsNews.com. And if you're staying with us right now, we have much more news headed your way right here on Scripps News Live.
This year, Americans will spend $41 billion on auto repairs.
That's right, billions with a B. Why is that number so high? Because cars break down. Your vehicle is going to end up in a shop like this too, and if it's no longer under warranty, you're the one who has to pay the bill, and it could cost you thousands of dollars. That is, unless you call CarShield. With a plan through CarShield, administrators will pay for those costly repairs directly to the mechanic of your choice, including dealerships. That means you get protection on major parts and systems like the engine, transmission, electrical systems, and more. Plus, 24/7 emergency services for flat or damaged tires, lockouts, dead batteries, and towing at no additional cost. And there are even rental car options to keep you on the road.
I've been a mechanic for 35 plus years now. I've seen thousands of repairs over the years. My happiest customers are the ones that come in do have some kind of auto protection policy that's going to cover the repair that they wasn't expecting anyway. I feel great about recommending CarShield to everybody I see.
CarShield has a rich history of dependability, reliability, and success, and has been featured on leading networks like ABC, CNN, Fox News, and more. CarShield is America's most trusted auto protection company.
My mom told me to call CarShield, and I saved $5,000. You should always listen to your mom.
As soon as my car broke down, CarShield jumped into action, and I had my car back within days.
I've been with CarShield for close to 7 years. I have 3 vehicles covered, and I saved close to $9,000.
I called CarShield and saved over $5,000.
Yes, CarShield is a good value. Every plan through CarShield comes with a price lock guarantee, which means no matter how many repairs you need, the price you pay today will never change for as long as you cover your car.
Call now and save money with your price lock guarantee. It's not a matter of if your car will break down, but when. Call CarShield now before it's too late. Call 800-287-5264. 800-287-5264. 800-287-5264.
Hey there, welcome to Scripps News Live. I'm Veronica Cruz. Thank you so much for kicking off your week with us. Good to see you on this Monday. Let's get you caught up right now on the day's top stories. So Israel's parliament approved a key portion of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's plan to overhaul the country's justice system. Before the vote, opposition lawmakers chanted shame and then stormed out of the chamber. The opposition leader called Netanyahu, quote, the puppet of messianic extremists. Conservatives have argued that the court has too much power. Russia calling out Ukraine for drone attacks on Moscow and Crimea. It says a drone that fell near Defense Ministry headquarters hit 2 buildings. The one in Crimea struck an ammunition depot and it stopped traffic on a major highway and nearby train tracks. In the meantime, Ukraine says 4 people were injured when Russian drones destroyed a grain hangar and other depots in southern Ukraine. 19,000 people, mostly tourists, have now evacuated the Greek island of Rhodes. Some left on buses, others left by boat. Strong winds and oppressive heat are helping to fan the flames. There are 3 other major fires raging elsewhere in the country right now. The Greek prime minister declaring that, quote, we are at war. So no matter where you live, you can't avoid extreme weather, but where you live could determine how much protection you'll receive before a disaster strikes. National correspondent Cruz takes a closer look at the problems some areas have been facing with insurance.
From wildfires to hurricanes to flooding and more, Americans are feeling Mother Nature's wrath on their homes, cars, and lives.
And I understand that they've lost 400 homes either in or near Grizzly since this fire just started. That's a huge number. Those are lives that'll be chased.
Because, this is our livelihood, this is all we got. Without this, you don't have anything.
And adding insult to injury, more Americans are learning what happens when disaster strikes and insurance isn't there to help. That's because in some high-risk states, insurance companies are halting new policies or leaving the state altogether.
That's another 33,000 people losing their insurance, but that's just a fraction of the total number of people in Louisiana that have already lost their insurance this year.
More Colorado homeowners are being denied insurance now because of the risk of wildfire.
State Farm joins AIG, leaving California's homeowners insurance market.
A spokesman tells me the move is necessary to effectively manage risk exposure.
While each state has unique problems facing their insurance industries, the common obstacle across the country has been the cost of payouts by insurance companies after catastrophic weather events. In 2022, natural disasters brought a global economic loss of $275 billion. Insurance covered about 45% of it, meaning a cost of $125 billion. The biggest single event loss was Hurricane Ian, which ravaged the southeastern United States. Global weather disasters have an indirect impact on the insurance crisis here in the U.S. When an insurance company offers catastrophe coverage, they're essentially owning the risk of having to pay for damages. In turn, many insurance companies purchase a form of their own coverage called reinsurance. In other words, the reinsurance companies are actually on the hook for the risk of a catastrophe. Many of these reinsurance companies have global reach, and as their catastrophe premiums have risen around the globe, insurance companies now can't afford their own insurance. So they raise prices on homeowners or pull out of expensive markets altogether. This can leave homeowners with fewer and more expensive options to choose from. In Louisiana, more than 20 companies have shut down or left the state. The last resort insurer, which is state-owned and taxpayer-funded, is required by law to be more expensive than private insurers. The average premium for home insurance is over $2,000 a year, which is 46% higher than the national average.
Families should not have to choose between food on the table and paying a ridiculously high flood insurance premium to a program that is governed by the federal government.
There are other reasons for the soaring premiums and insurance exodus that aren't related to extreme weather risks. Some insurers have also cited inflation, rising costs of construction, and regulations lowering premium prices as reasons for leaving states. But some observers argue that housing development needs to be limited in high-risk areas in the first place. Housing continues to expand quickly in floodplains, along coastlines, and wildfire-prone areas. For example, in Florida, the landfall area for Hurricane Ian had seen a population boom of 620% over the previous 5 years. If these trends continue, it will be the perfect storm that leaves American homeowners without crucial protection in the face of extreme weather disasters to come.
Chris Stewart reporting there for us. So relentless heat is still baking the United States, and we've covered how to protect your family, your pets. But what about your plants? Well, experts say it's best to water throughout the growing season. Water long and slow to saturate the soil. Also, you want to water before a heat wave. The best time of the day is either at night or in the morning before it begins to get too hot.
You have your desert plants, you have your tropicals. It really comes down to how you're caring for them. When you're looking for your plants and you're going to local nurseries where they do grow them locally, that's going to be the big difference there.
You also want to provide shade if you can, and you can do this by draping a bed sheet over your plants. You can also use large patio or beach umbrellas. Straight out on Scripps News Live, it is a traveling hack to save money on airfare, but airlines are looking for ways to crack down. We're going to find out if skip lagging is worth the risk.
Who is the lowest hotel prices these days? Online travel sites or the hotel itself? We'll find out coming up.
If you, like many people, are covered by both Medicare and your state's Medicaid, here's something important to know. Now you could get even more health benefits than you already have. It's the United Healthcare Dual Complete Plan. To find out if you or someone you care about is eligible, it's easy. Call now to talk with us. We can explain it all and answer your questions. Medicaid gives you benefits and Medicare gives you some too. But a Dual Complete Plan can add even more benefits and features compared to original Medicare. You'll have lots of doctors and hospitals to choose from. $0 copays on all covered prescriptions, including brand names. And depending on where you live, you could enjoy other benefits too, like more dental care and rides to and from your doctor or pharmacy. Most plans even give you up to $300 a month to help pay for covered over-the-counter products, groceries, and new this year, utility bills. And best of all, with this plan, there's no extra cost to you. Remember, if you have Medicare and Medicaid, chances are you could get a Dual Complete Plan. So call now to talk with us. Our agents are available to help. We know healthcare can be confusing. United Healthcare can straighten things out. And with over 40 years of experience, you can count on us to be there for you. With a Dual Complete Plan, you could have a wide choice of doctors to choose from. $0 copays on all covered prescriptions, help paying for covered over-the-counter products, groceries, and utility bills. More dental coverage too, all at no extra cost. If you have both Medicare and Medicaid, you may be eligible for Dual Complete. So call the number on your screen now to see if you're eligible or to enroll. There's more for you with the United Healthcare Dual Complete Plan.
One way to avoid expensive car repair bills is to be a race car driver. The other is endurance.
Endurance saved me more than $7,000.
Without endurance, breakdowns can cost thousands. With endurance, you're covered.
Endurance covers nearly every car on the road. Plus,
you pick the mechanic you trust.
Acts now for $300 off any plan, plus a year of elite benefits and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Call 1-855-588-2580 now.
When Lila was ready to sell her ring, she sent it to Worthy, where they took care of everything and auctioned it on her terms. Then, Worthy sent Lila her money. You're worthy of more. Get started at worthy.com.
There's a better way to begin your mornings.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Morning Rush.
Get the stories that will shape each day,
Definitely a lot of folks talking about this.
so you can get on with yours. Morning Rush, weekday mornings starting at 7, 6 Central, only on Scripps News.
Welcome back to Scripps News Live. So travelers looking to save on airfare have been using this hack that might not actually be worth the risk. It's called skip lagging. And when you book a flight and plan to get off at a layover city and throw away the last leg of the trip, that is what this is. That is skip lagging. And it's been a money saver for passengers because airfares can be higher for direct flights. But airlines view this practice as fraud, and it impacts them in a couple of different ways. First, with passengers underpaying, and then also because a seat on the final leg will go empty when it could have just been sold to someone else. Brad Jaffe joins us now. He's an internationally published travel writer and wrote about skip lagging for the Washington Post. Brad, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks so much for having me, Veronica. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much. So, Brad, we know that this actually has had a negative impact on some travelers. I know they've been sharing some stories. Tell us specifically about the teenager who was stopped from boarding a flight in Florida. What kind of rules were broken and what exactly happened here?
Right. So, this is something that's been going on in the airline industry for quite some time. There's actually a dedicated site that people can use to kind of find these deals. And that's existed since, I believe, 2014. But it is because of this recent incident that you're referring to that it's kind of cropping up in the news right now. So there's a teenager that was his parents had booked him a flight as an unaccompanied minor. He was going from Gainesville to ultimately he was trying to go to Charlotte. But the flight was booked Gainesville to New York because it was just cheaper to do it that way. And his intentions were always to get off the plane in Charlotte, which was his intended destination. But when he went to go check in at the counter in Gainesville, they saw a North Carolina ID, and that kind of tipped them off to the fact that maybe he wasn't going to take that connecting flight up to New York. And he was questioned about what his travel intentions were.
Okay, this is crazy because I do have to question why an airline would ask about your travel plans. But I want to circle back to something that you were telling me about, which was the website or this app, which is called Skip Lagging, that finds these fares for flyers for a lot less. So I would imagine that if any rules are being broken here, then it would be on skip lagging on the company and not necessarily the passenger.
So it's called skiplag.com, and they actually, after that website came out, they were sued by the airlines, by I think it was United as well as Orbitz, were trying to sue them, and that suit was thrown out within a year of the company existing. So really, they can get away with what they're doing. They're just, they're not explicitly telling you to, violate the contract of carriage, which most of these airlines have a contract of carriage, which says that you need to be fully intending to take all of the flights that you book. So it's kind of like a wink, wink, you're not going to do that, right? Kind of thing. So it's a workaround. But again, getting back to this scenario of the minor, it was an extenuating circumstance because his parents booked his flight and he didn't really kind of know the logistics of what was going on. So the airlines could take advantage of that situation to kind of apply the pressure and be like, hey, you're not really going to New York, right? Because in normal circumstances, when people skip lag, there's no way that an airline is going to know whether or not you're going to go on that next leg of the flight because, it's really... They have no way to get you to admit that you're not going to get on that next flight.
I mean, unless you check your bag all the way through, then you would be in big trouble. Right. But let's go ahead and talk about the contract of carriage. If you are in violation of the contract of carriage, what kind of consequences could you potentially face?
Right. So if you are in violation of that, then they can revoke your ticket at any point in time. So getting back to the teenager in Gainesville, they could have said, okay, we don't think you're going to get on this flight, the connecting flight from Charlotte to New York. So we're not even going to let you board this flight. Your entire itinerary is invalid now. If you are somebody that builds up mileage, and you have status with airlines, those types of things can be revoked. And in the most extenuating or the most extreme examples, people have been sued for trying to commit this practice. So there is a lot of risk. And you also hinted at the aspect of if you have checked bags. So if you are skip lagging, you cannot check bags, because in this case, for example, they would have gone to New York and this passenger was getting off in Gainesville. So that would be a problem or is getting off in North Carolina. That would be a problem if you get off in North Carolina and your bags are waiting for you in New York. So that is off the table. You can't check anything in. So there's a lot of limitations to this practice.
Do you really think that this practice is going to stop? You had said that they had tried to go after the company Skiplag and they couldn't. The lawsuit was tossed out, but they have sued passengers. Do you really, who do you think is in the driver's seat in this situation? Do you really think the airlines can stop this practice?
I don't think they can. And in reporting for this story, it kind of just how touchy it was with the airlines kind of called attention to the fact that they really don't want people talking about this, quite frankly, because there's only so much that they can do to curtail it. And a lot of the comments that I saw, I mean, there were tremendous engagement with a story like this, hundreds and hundreds of comments, and just skimming through some of those on the Washington Post website, a lot of people were like, hey, they feel like the airlines are doing all kinds of things to, not be right with them, whether it be delays or overbooking of aircraft, which happens a lot, particularly in the summer months. So the attitude of a lot of travelers that I've seen is it's like, hey, you guys are playing a game on your side where you're overbooked flights. If we're going to play a game on us, good for us. There's not a lot of remorse or sympathy for the airlines, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that happening. People are getting charged more and more for baggage fees. They're getting charged for calling the airline directly these days. And, to your point, they're getting charged for everything. So the website is skiplag.com. Is that what it is, Brad?
Yeah, in the past tense. So skiplag.com is the one that kind of popularized that term. The airlines refer to it as hidden city ticketing. That's kind of the more industry accepted term for it. But Skiplag came out in 2014 and kind of popularized that phrase and that practice.
Skiplagged. All right, travel writer Brad Jaffe. Brad, thank you so much for pulling back the curtain on this one. I'll have to look it up myself. Thanks, Brad.
Thanks so much. Have a great summer of traveling.
You too. So finding a discount on a hotel could get pretty tricky. And while some deals might just sound too good to be true, some experts are saying that they probably are. Consumer reporter John Matarese explains why you shouldn't work too hard when it comes to searching and finding those lower rates.
Hotel rooms are expensive right now, so of course you want the best deal possible. But it turns out that spending hours searching online for a lower rate may not always be worth it.
Marty Stone is a frequent hotel traveler, and when he needs to book a room these days, he goes straight to the hotel site.
I'm a Marriott guy, yeah, so I just went to the website.
For Robin Hoppy, same strategy, different chain.
I use the Hilton website.
But what about all those discount travel sites? Kevin Brassler and his team with Consumers Checkbook did nearly 2,000 searches on 25 travel sites using 75 different hotel stays. What they found was surprising.
But over and over again, for the most part, we were being quoted the same prices from each seller.
How's that possible? Kevin says what looks like a healthy competition is a bit of an illusion, with many sites owned by one of two companies.
One is Expedia, the other is Booking Holdings. The hotels and these third-party bookers have entered agreements that basically say, for the same stay at the same property for the same dates, they're all going to charge the same prices.
So instead of hopping from site to site for a better deal, the savings really come from being flexible, like shifting your travel dates or staying in a nearby suburb versus downtown. Kevin says researchers found one way to unlock lower prices if you're up for a gamble. They're called mystery deals.
You don't learn the name of that hotel until you've prepaid and booked your stay and there's no refunds, there's no backing out.
Examples are Hotwire's hot rate specials and Priceline's express deals. But Allison Whipple always starts searching where she wants to go.
Straight through the hotel website, just go direct to the source.
Then she checks around for better deals, and that way you don't waste your money. I'm John Matarese.
Coming up next on Scripps News Live, the push to sign up more African-American organ donors. And an 11-year-old boy and his dad have made a pitch to every major league team. We're going to tell you the message that they want to deliver from the mound. That's next.
Municipal bonds don't usually get the media coverage the stock market does. In fact, most people don't find them all that exciting. But if you're looking for the potential for consistent income that's federally tax-free, now is an excellent time to consider municipal bonds from Henyon & Walsh. If you have at least $10,000 to invest, call and talk with one of our bond specialists at 1-800-465-8465. We'll send you our exclusive bond guide, free, with details about how bonds can be an important part of your portfolio. Henyon & Walsh has specialized in fixed income and growth solutions for 30 years and offers high-quality municipal bonds from across the country. They provide the potential for regular income, are federally tax-free, and have historically low risk. Call today to request your free bond guide. 1-800-465-8465. That's 1-800-465-8465.
I'm Shiza, co-founder of Our Place, and this is how we created the 8-in-1 award-winning Always Pan. We partnered with the best experts in sustainability and design. And after 3 years, 43 prototypes, and hundreds of egg tests later, we did it. Today, we have over 30,000 5-star reviews, and the Always Pan just keeps selling out. Ready to make cooking a lot easier?
Meet Pair Eyewear, the only glasses brand that lets you change your glasses like you change your clothes. Simply snap on a top frame and you're ready to go. Now you can customize a look for every outfit, every occasion, and every day. With hundreds of designs to choose from, Pair makes it easy to match your style and build a collection you'll love. You can even snap on a sun top to instantly turn your pair into sunglasses. Start building your collection today at paireyewear.com.
How does Klein & Spector get among the most big verdicts and settlements of any law firm in the country? Because Klein & Spector is an award-winning team with 5 doctor lawyers, the most of any firm in the United States. And that's why the New York Times calls Klein & Spector a powerhouse law firm. So if a defective product, motor vehicle accident, or medical malpractice caused a catastrophic injury, call Klein & Spector.
We're back for $500. Can you take it? Hair from the drain. Salmon, we heard you're allergic.
I can't take it.
Mimi, you ready?
There's an easier way you can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less when you download Dave.
For over 100 years, this light has shined. A beacon of the free American press.
Reporting from Ukraine, Scripps News.
And now, this light shines even brighter. Scripps News.
Welcome back. According to a new study, older people who take a low dose of aspirin daily might increase their risk of anemia by as much as 20%. More than 19,000 people, mostly 70 and older, participated in the study, and they took 100 milligrams of aspirin or a placebo every day for 5 years. Iron levels declined more in people who took aspirin, and the results were published in the journal Annals of Internal Medicine. Many times, complete strangers come to the rescue of patients needing life-saving organ transplants. Jonah Brown and his family are hunting for the special person who might be a bone marrow match. Sydney Darden with Scripps News Lexington went with the team as they search for a potential donor.
Just going to swab. Close your mouth when you do that. Swab for 10 seconds, and then I'll help you from there.
A 10-second swab could mean a lifetime of change for Jonah Brown, who's been living with leukemia and is now in need of a life-saving bone marrow transplant.
It only takes one to be a match for somebody else.
The Brown family teamed up with Be the Match to find a donor. The challenge, bone marrow donors have to come from people with similar genetic makeup.
We match donors based on your ethnicity. Someone of another race can have the same blood type as me, and they can donate blood to me. But God forbid that I need a transplant, it has to be someone that genetically looks like me.
And right now, African Americans only make up 29% of the donor pool, which means a slim chance to find a match and a slimmer chance for survival, making the need for diverse donors that much more important.
It is important for us just to remind everyone how important it is to fight for life.
As he celebrates his 39th birthday, Jonah shared the same excitement in a phone call.
I appreciate everyone showing up, not just for me, but for so many people around the country who are trying to find a donor for whatever type of cancer they're going through. And I'm fighting every day, and I'm just grateful for everyone that showing that they have my back.
In Lexington, Sydney Darden.
Well, a new study out found that people who watch a lot of television as children might be more at risk for health issues when they're adults. Researchers followed children in New Zealand over several decades, beginning in 1973. And the kids and teens who racked up the most screen time went on to have higher blood pressure, higher rates of obesity, and other ailments by the age of 45. Now, experts say while watching too much television isn't directly linked to those health effects, it may contribute to a sedentary lifestyle and poor eating habits. Now we'd like to introduce you to an 11-year-old boy from Highland, Utah, who wants to throw out the first pitch for all 30 Major League Baseball teams. He and his dad told Darian DeBrule with Scripps News Salt Lake that it has nothing to do with greed or fame. Now the goal is to help children with Down syndrome get adopted.
He plays, he goes all in, so he'll slide and he's just yelling and he just loves it. And so he's a good hitter, he's a good thrower.
Cooper Murray is a natural athlete. He's always ready to put his mitt on, hit the field, and talk about baseball. What's your favorite part about baseball?
About bats and hit.
He's just found a knack for baseball, and so I've coached all these years, coached all of his teams, and helped him to be able to grow and develop as a player.
Cooper was adopted by Brady Murray and his wife in 2016, a decision that changed their lives for the better.
Coop was abandoned on a street corner in a city of 14 million people in mainland China. In 2016, my wife and I just felt something in our heart like we needed to adopt, and in fact, not just adopt, but adopt a child with Down syndrome, and we found out about Cooper, and we just felt like that's our son.
Now the Murrays are on a mission. After being invited by Chicago Cubs pitcher Justin Steele and his wife to throw a pitch at spring training, Cooper was offered a chance to show off his skills again by throwing the first pitch in a Cubs regular season game.
Staff was there and they saw it and they're like, we've got to have him come out to Wrigley and do this in Chicago. So he said, for sure. And on Memorial Day, we went out to Wrigley and he wowed the crowd. And a short time after that, the Red Sox reached out to us and asked if we wanted to come out and throw out the first pitch there. And now we're on a mission to get in all MLB stadiums.
The purpose is not just for Cooper to continue to wow every crowd, as he does so easily, but to raise money for the Murray's organization, Rod's Heroes, so other orphan children with Down syndrome can find loving families, just like Cooper did.
The first way is Coop has a mission to be able to help 30 kids that have Down syndrome get adopted. So one for every MLB team. And so the way that we do that oftentimes is by raising funding. So one of the biggest challenges in adoption is the cost of adoption.
With 2 down, Cooper has 28 more teams to go and hopes his next pitch can be thrown in Truist Park for his favorite team.
Oh, what a great kid and what a great story. That was Darian DeBrule reporting for us from Salt Lake City. Thank you so much for watching Scripps News Live. I'm Veronica de la Cruz. Great to see you today. For the audience leaving us right now, your local programming is up next. Don't forget, you can always check us out on scripsnews.com. Now, if you're staying with us, we have much more news headed your way on Scripps News Live. We'll be right back.
Attention all seniors. You can now get up to $50,000 for your funeral and other final expenses, including your credit card debt, with no medical exam, starting at less than $1 a day.
Oh, honey, your dad and I can't stop talking about this baby that's coming.
We've also been thinking a lot about our future, and no matter what, we want to make sure we aren't leaving you and your family with any of our debts.
Just last week, we read that the price of a funeral can be $8,000 or more.
Wow, Jeff and I definitely would not have the money to pay for that.
And that's just a funeral. But you don't have to worry. We called, and with one phone call, we were eligible for $50,000 for our funeral and final expenses.
Well, that's great, but don't you need to take a medical exam to qualify? You and Mom have some health issues.
No, there's no medical exam, and we were able to get coverage right over the phone.
And our rates can never be increased, our benefits can never be decreased, and our coverage can never be canceled.
I'm so glad you made that call.
Don't leave loved ones with your debt. Call 800-293-5789 now and see if you qualify for up to $50,000 for your funeral and other final expenses, starting at less than $1 a day. There's no medical exam, and you can be approved even if you have pre-existing health conditions. Your rates can never be increased, your benefits can never be decreased, and your coverage can never be canceled. There's no obligation. Call 800-293-5789 now. There's no paperwork, no hidden fees, and no waiting periods. And you can start coverage right over the phone, starting at less than $1 a day. Call 800-293-5789. That's 800-293-5789. 800-293-5789.
Hey there, thank you so much for joining us on this Monday afternoon. It is now 1 p.m. in the East, 10 a.m. out West. I'm Veronica Cruz. Thank you so much for kicking off your week with us. Welcome to Scripps News Live. We begin this hour in Israel with the Israeli parliament passing a controversial law to limit the ability of the country's Supreme Court to overturn decisions that the government makes. Now, this has not only caused tension with the United States, but protesters have been up in arms in Israel now for months. Thousands were in the streets today and over the weekend, but to no avail. Protesters fear the move is threatening democracy. Israel's justice minister says it's just the first step in a plan to overhaul the country's judicial system. White House correspondent Haley Bull is live for us right now in Washington. And Haley, leading up to this, the administration really has been urging compromise on this issue. What has the reaction been like so far today?
Veronica, the White House calls the decision unfortunate as it's pushing for more compromise on this issue. The plan for a judicial overhaul has drawn concern from the administration and President Biden himself. He shared it in a phone call with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu last week, where the White House said he called for the, quote, broadest possible consensus. The White House press secretary stating today, quote, it is unfortunate that the vote today took place with the slimmest possible majority. We understand talks are ongoing and likely to continue in the coming weeks and months to forge a broader compromise, even with the Knesset in recess. Now, a National Security Council spokesperson tells us they are urging leaders to take a consensus-based approach with political dialogue. Now, the administration also says it will support efforts from Israeli President Isaac Herzog in building that broader compromise. Now, Herzog visited with President Biden last week at the White House, where he defended Israel's democracy, calling it resilient, while Biden threaded the line of those concerns over the plan, but doubling down on the U.S.'s commitment to Israeli security. Now, this overhaul plan in Israel, in part, limits the Supreme Court's ability to hear cases against the government, something that has drawn concerns about the erosion of checks and balances and prompted protests. One expert we spoke with today says we need to see how this plays out going forward. Listen.
Israel's status as a democracy in the Middle East is a country that fundamentally operates along the same lines as the United States has been a deep thread running through U.S.-Israel relations for 75 years. If Israel becomes less and less like the United States, I would expect that to affect the nature of bilateral cooperation. If increasing numbers of Americans have deep concerns about the way Israel not only is governed, but about the kinds of decisions that Israel makes, I expect that to at least affect the deep partnership that the U.S. has developed with Israel over 75 years, and especially over the last 50 years, where we've really been shoulder to shoulder.
And Israel's opposition leader warned that it harms the security of Israel, calling it a sad day. But as the White House and President Biden have expressed concerns about this plan for months and now publicly weighing in, certainly marks a significant view from the White House here today. Veronica.
Haley Bull live there in Washington, right outside the White House. Haley, always appreciate it. Thank you so much. Well, the United Nations Command is now in talks with North Korea about the U.S. soldier who sprinted across the border from South Korea. Private second-class Travis King bolted from a tour group last Tuesday. The day before, U.S. military officials escorted him to an airport customs checkpoint. King was to fly to Fort Bliss, Texas for possible further discipline after serving for 2 months for an assault in South Korea, but he never boarded that plane.
Primary concern for us is Private King's welfare. The conversation has commenced with the KPA through the mechanisms of the armistice agreement.
South Korea now says the North fired 2 missiles into the sea this morning, and that's an update from earlier when it said that only 1 was fired. It may all be a response to the U.S. sending 2 nuclear submarines to South Korea. Back in the U.S. now, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis creating a firestorm by suggesting that slaves benefited from slavery because they were taught useful skills. Florida's state school board unanimously approved that controversial comment be taught in schools as part of Black history. DeSantis brought the ire of many, including Vice President Kamala Harris, and he's accused of trying to change the history of slavery, all while running for president of the United States. National political correspondent Kevin Cirilli has the details here on the fallout.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis under new scrutiny for his anti-woke policy that now he's trying to distance himself from. According to the Florida's new curriculum, state school board approving new guidelines that state new standards include teaching students, quote, how slaves developed skills which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit, end quote. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Biden, as well as all Democrats, forcefully pushing back against DeSantis, and now some Republicans are pushing back as well. Now, DeSantis for himself, he told CNN last week that he did not write the line that is drawing such scrutiny. Take a listen to what he said on CNN.
I think that they're probably going to show some of the folks that eventually parlayed, being a blacksmith into doing things later in life.
Elsewhere, former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, who's also seeking the Republican nomination for president, had this to say on the Sunday shows.
Governor DeSantis started this fire with the bill that he signed, and now he doesn't want to take responsibility for whatever is done in the aftermath of it. And from listening and watching his comments, he's obviously uncomfortable.
Politically, DeSantis is trying to revamp his presidential campaign after an expensive launch earlier this year. It also comes as he reportedly is considering a campaign shakeup. In addition to that, DeSantis has consistently polled second in states like Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina, as well as nationally, behind the Republican frontrunner, former President Donald Trump. All the other candidates barely cracking 10 percentage points and most polling in single digits. Reporting from Washington, Kevin Cirilli, Scripps News.
They want to replace history with lies. Middle school students in Florida to be told that enslaved people benefited from slavery. High schoolers may be taught that victims of violence, of massacres, were also perpetrators. I said it yesterday. They insult us in an attempt to gaslight us, and we will not have it.
The weekend's War of Words may have previewed a new role for Vice President Harris as the culture wars become more prominent during the 2024 campaign. Attorney Michael Starr Hopkins knows Florida politics well. He was a senior advisor to Charlie Crist, who ran for governor against DeSantis back in 2022. He's also a former campaign staffer for Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. He joined Morning Rush earlier today to weigh in.
I think one of the things you're going to see from this White House is that Vice President Harris is going to be the attack dog role. She's going to be more of the person to go out and go after Donald Trump, go after Governor DeSantis. And I think that's a very good role for her. One, because it helps bring up some of those negatives and increase your positives. And also, it's a good way for her to prepare for 2028 should she be a candidate.
Now, Governor DeSantis tried to defend himself over the weekend. Let's listen to what he had to say.
I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. It's totally outrageous. You guys can look on the website of the Florida Department of Education. You know, they got a lot of scholars together to do a lot of standards and a lot of different things, but these are the most robust standards in African American history, probably anywhere in the country. Anyone who reads that will see that it's very thorough, very factual, and for them to try to demagogue it.
All right, so there he is kind of doubling down. My question is, how do you think that's going to play with primary voters in those critical early states, Iowa and New Hampshire specifically?
You know, I don't think it's going to play very well. One of the things that was a negative for President Trump where people were exhausted of constant culture war battles, the negativity, the divisive battles. Trump has a ceiling of 30% with the Republican Party. We've seen that he can't really get higher, but he never really goes lower. Well, one of DeSantis's problems is he can't out-Trump Trump, but he's also not a very likable person. And so as he goes to the early states and goes and meets people where they are face to face, he's not going to really be able to increase those numbers. And that's what we've seen within his negatives. His negatives are that he can't connect, that he's not relatable. And the more he tries to do national press, the less people like him.
Has also called on administrators to investigate the state's investments in Anheuser-Busch. We've seen him go after Disney. How successful is DeSantis' strategy of de-woking going to be for the state of Florida specifically?
Look, when you're going up against Mickey Mouse, that's a losing battle. If there's one thing that can unite the country, it's that most people love Mickey Mouse. And so I think Chris Christie has really nailed it on the head in terms of Governor DeSantis. All he wants to do is use the word woke over and over and over again. But what's that really mean? And so I think when you see that debate stage in August where Governor Christ and Governor DeSantis are on the stage, you could see a real redo of what Governor Christ did to, or rather Governor Christie, not my old former boss, but what Governor Christie did to Marco Rubio, where he really put him to a wood shredder and ended his campaign. It's going to be vicious to see those two go up against each other. And I think because Governor DeSantis has only used friendly right-wing media when he does appearances, he's not going to be prepared for it.
That was attorney Michael Starr Hopkins there on Morning Rush earlier. In Washington, the White House says President Biden will establish a national monument honoring Emmett Till and his mother. The black teenager was tortured and killed in 1955 after he was accused of whistling at a white woman in Mississippi. His lynching and his mother's insistence on an open casket was a catalyst for the civil rights movement. Biden is expected to sign the proclamation tomorrow on what would have been Till's 82nd birthday. Still to come on Scripps News Live, the heat wave sticking around. Meteorologist Scott Withers is tracking the high temperatures for us. Plus, Barbie winning the top spot at the box office. We're going to have the details on the film's record-setting opening. And don't forget, you can always count on Scripps News for all of your news throughout the primetime hours, beginning at 6 p.m. Eastern.
Hi, I'm Kirk Kaiser, and did you know the average funeral costs around $10,000? And if you don't have enough insurance to cover funeral costs, credit card debt, and other expenses, your family is going to get stuck with the bill. Don't let that happen. Call right now. And if you're over 50, you can get up to $30,000 in affordable life insurance, and your acceptance is guaranteed. That's right. If you're over 50, you can't be turned down for this insurance, regardless of your health. Plus, there's no medical exam and no health questions. Your rate will never go up. Your coverage will never go down. And rates start as low as $5 a week. Your coverage begins as soon as your application is received. Don't wait until it's too late.
Just call 800-760-7793.
Coverage is guaranteed regardless of your health and cannot be canceled without your approval. Don't leave your family with a huge bill for your funeral. With one fast and easy call, get up to $30,000 in affordable life insurance to help cover funeral expenses and credit card debt, and maybe even leave something for your kids and your grandkids. Remember, if you're over 50, you can't be turned down, regardless of your health. There's no medical exam and no health questions. Best of all, your rates start as low as $5 a week, and your rate will never increase. Nothing is more important than family, so don't leave them with a lot of bills to pay when you're gone. Don't leave your family with a lot of bills to pay for your funeral. Call right now. Acceptance is guaranteed. Call right now.
Call now. Call 800-760-7793. That's 800-760-7793.
If you're living with diabetes, this is the sound that could change your life.
Great news for people living with diabetes. Now you can wear a continuous glucose monitor and eliminate routine finger sticks. The days of repeated, painful finger sticks are over.
Call 800-719-8907.
If you use insulin daily to manage your condition, a continuous glucose monitor could help you control your diabetes and reduce or eliminate those painful finger sticks. If you have Medicare or private insurance, US Med can deliver a CGM system right to your door. And if you qualify, there may be little or no cost to you. Shipping is free and will even bill your insurer directly. Call now to get your continuous glucose monitoring system so you can take control of your diabetes and get back to enjoying life.
Call 800-719-8907. That's 800-719-8907.
And a quick reminder right here, we'd like to hear from you. Give us a call on our Scripps News viewer hotline toll free. That number is on your screen. It's 1-833-4-SCRIPPS. Feel free to share your comments or your story ideas. Okay, it is a brand new week, but a heat wave is still baking much of the country right now. And meteorologist Scott Withers says to get ready because more heat is still in the forecast.
For the southeast and the Gulf Coast states, we're cooled back down to our normal summer temperatures, but this is just a short reprieve as that heat dome, well, it's going to intensify and expand starting today. But let's start in Texas. These were some intense moments here. This is Harlingen, Texas, as a family accidentally locks their infant inside their car. The father uses a crowbar to smash the window open. It was 99 degrees outside, inside even hotter. Woman was finally able to crawl through the hole in the window, hand the baby out. You can see it right there. Now the infant is going to be A-OK. But it is critical to always get kids and pets out of vehicles so that this could have ended much differently. All right, the heat dome on the move right there. It is still centered just right over Phoenix. 24 days in Phoenix so far, above 110 degrees. They're going to break that again today. By Wednesday, you can see the heat moving up through the central plains here, up into the upper Midwest. Minneapolis, St. Paul will be almost 100 degrees. Yeah, 100 degrees on Wednesday. Now, the feels like temperature up there is going to be even hotter. By the end of the week, this is going to settle back down right here into the upper plains. Kansas, Nebraska, Missouri, Iowa, almost all of Texas. While the southwest, well, you can see you're going to be back to hot there, southeast, back to normal summer temperatures. We're going to be setting a lot more records right out here. On the national satellite, you can see why. We've got this high pressure dome that's just sitting here spinning and spinning, and that's just not allowing it to move. It's right over Utah. You can see Colorado, New Mexico. That's what's holding it in place. The rain coming up around, that's the jet stream there. It goes up and comes back down. Then on the other side of it, that's where we're going to see storms in the upper Mississippi River Valley today and the Ohio River Valley. Take a look at our severe weather alerts. Thunderstorms that you can see there in the green. We have more wildfire smoke that's going to be coming down over the next few days, invading. And then look here, the orange and the red. 37 million Americans under heat advisories, warnings, and watches. The red and the orange, it's going to feel like 112 in Miami. Get this, the real temperature today in Phoenix, Arizona, 116. The heat is really taking its toll. We're starting to see increases in heat death reports. In Tarrant County, that's Fort Worth, Texas, 2 people died working outside and another 2 died because of no access to air conditioning.
Meteorologist Scott Withers there reporting for us. 19,000 people, mostly tourists, have now evacuated the Greek island of Rhodes. Some left on buses, others by boat. Strong winds and oppressive heat have been helping to fan the flames, and there are 3 other major fires raging elsewhere in Greece right now. In the meantime, the Greek Prime Minister has declared, quote, that we are at war. Coming up next on Scripps News Live, could the Fed raise interest rates yet again? We're going to explore what the top financial advisors are considering right now. Plus, Another change for Twitter? Yeah, we're going to explain why Elon Musk is now bidding farewell to the company's popular Blue Bird. And on that front, a reminder right here, you can always find our stories and much more online. Check us out at scripsnews.com, also on X, which is formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and also Threads. We'll be right back.
I was having problems with my legs and my feet.
I suffered a lot of cramps, swelling.
I would dread going up and down steps.
Tingling in my legs due to circulation issues.
The aches and pains have just continued to increase.
Did you know if you have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, or are over 40, your leg aches and pains could be from poor circulation? Revitive can help reduce leg aches and pains, swelling, and cramps. Revitive uses breakthrough technology to get your calf muscles pumping like a second heart to increase blood flow, reducing leg aches and pains, cramps, or swollen feet and ankles.
Plus, it's drug-free.
The cramping was terrible, and I don't get that anymore. Thank you, Revitive.
Revitive is FDA cleared and clinically proven to increase oxygen-rich blood flow during use. The smart stimulation works so well, over 3 million people use Revitive.
As a firefighter, I'm constantly on my feet. I wish I had known about Revitive a lot earlier. It would have made a huge difference in really who I am today.
Revitive has given me a better quality of life because I am living without pain.
Revitive reduces leg pains 2 times more than exercise alone in just 6 weeks.
We want to take walks. We want to do more social activities, just the typical things in life that I did not feel well enough before Revitive that I was able to do.
Yeah, Revitive is regenerizing my legs and making me feel like, let's do more.
Go to Revitive.com now to learn how Revitive can help reduce leg aches and pains, swelling, and cramps.
The doctor said, go for it. And I'm in the best shape in terms of my legs and my ankles and my feet than I've ever been.
Try Revitive. You will see the difference. It works. It worked for me.
Get the most out of life with Revitive. Visit Revitive.com. That's REVITIVE.com. Or call
1-800-317-6641. That's 1-800-317-6641 today. Or visit Revitive.com. Order now.
It's Christmas all July at Balsam Hill. It's never too early to save, so why wait? Get amazing deals now on our wide variety of exclusive designs. Find the perfect tree at up to 50% off at balsamhill.com.
How can a photo become a vibrant part of your home? When you go to tryfracture.com and print your images directly on glass. Get beautiful depth and clarity on a sleek frameless print that's easy to hang and looks incredible in any space. Go to tryfracture.com now to save on glass prints.
Between the red and the blue, there is gray.
Out there is what's known as the gray zone, the no man's land between the Ukrainian and Russian armies.
Warriors on the edge, waiting to fight.
This is a passageway to get between their positions. From here, will you get orders to advance?
The Gray Zone, tonight at 8/7 Central on Scripps News Tonight.
It is 21 minutes after the hour now. The new week beginning with the Dow still on a roll. Look at the boards right now. Lots of green on the board. It is heading for its 11th straight day of gains. Checking out the rest of the numbers. Lots of green on the S&P and NASDAQ as well. The S&P is up about 20 points. The NASDAQ is up about 28 points as the investors, they don't really seem too worried right now about rate hikes. Again, the Fed could potentially be hiking rates another 0.25%, and that would be the 11th straight hike. Again, those meetings will be taking place this week. We're going to keep an eye on it for you. In the meantime, the nation's top financial leaders expected to raise interest rates, like I was just saying, when they meet this week, and it's been part of their ongoing effort to fight inflation. National political correspondent Stephanie Lieberman takes a closer look at all of it for us now.
On Tuesday and Wednesday this week, the Fed Board of Governors will sit down in this building behind me for their monthly meeting, and they are expected to raise interest rates again. And while that makes borrowing money more expensive, it could mean good news for your savings. The Federal Reserve has two main goals: maximize employment and minimize inflation. And the only tool it can use to achieve those goals is changing interest rates.
When you raise interest rates, you slam on the brakes of the economy because you make it more expensive to borrow money for any reason.
In June, the Fed decided not to raise rates, citing the positive trend in job growth and unemployment. But the board is expected to raise rates this time around. At the beginning of the pandemic, the Fed dropped interest rates to near zero. In March 2022, it raised rates for the first time in almost 2 years. Fast forward to today, interest rates are just over 5%, and that increase impacts car loans, credit cards, mortgages, and more.
And while a couple of percentage points doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it can mean thousands of dollars over the life of a loan, particularly when you're talking about something like a mortgage.
The Fed's rate hikes do seem to be helping the economy. Inflation has slowed in recent months, but prices on gas, groceries, and other necessities are still high.
If the Fed's policy is having the impact they hope, it slows this price growth, but it doesn't necessarily turn it negative. So that means you might not see prices come down on some items when you go to the grocery store.
The goal is to slow inflation long enough so increases in wages can catch up. But there is a positive side to higher interest rates, and that's in your savings.
So at the same time that interest rate increases make it more expensive to borrow things, interest rates also create really great incentives for us all to do what Ben Franklin and our moms and dads told us to do, which is save today, because a penny saved is a penny plus interest that you've got in the future to buy other things.
This meeting will be the Fed's last one before their summer break. The official announcement of this month's decision will come Wednesday at 2 o'clock Eastern. Stephanie Liebergen, Scripps News, Washington.
The Fed raised interest rates 10 times between March of 2022 and then May of 2023 before taking a break to evaluate the effects. This week's hike is expected once again to be 1/4 percentage point. A new contract offer is on the table right now for American Airlines pilots. The airline agreed to raise its contract offer by more than $1 billion, totaling about $9 billion in incremental compensation and benefits. This offer also includes a pay raise and a ratification bonus. And it all comes after United Airlines agreed to give its pilots up to a 40% raise. But the Allied Pilots Association says Americans' new offer still is not good enough. The CEO's goal is to ratify this new agreement next month. Okay, so X marks that spot that you used to call Twitter. Owner Elon Musk changing the logo from that familiar bluebird to the letter X today. It's the latest example of Musk revamping the social media site after buying it for $44 billion last year. National correspondent Stephanie Sandoval explores what it all means and what other changes we might see in the future.
Yeah, it's the latest change to Twitter. Over the weekend, Twitter owner Elon Musk announced it's ditching the bluebird and going dark, sporting a new logo, an X. He gave Twitter users a glimpse of the new logo yesterday. It went live early this morning on Twitter's online website. Now, when you search x.com, users are redirected to Twitter. Some have reported a glitch, though, saying that x.com actually takes them to a GoDaddy site instead. The new logo was seen on Twitter's headquarters in San Francisco. Musk tweeting a photo in celebration of the change. Since the Musk takeover, Twitter users have seen a multitude of changes, like one being only able to read a maximum number of posts a day for unverified users. And if you don't want any of those restrictions, you'll have to pay $11 a month for a subscription. With a subscription, users can do things like post longer tweets and videos, edit a tweet up to 5 times within a 30-minute window, and of course get that iconic blue check mark, which for some is now yellow. The company says the present and future changes to Twitter are going to revolutionize how we all interact with each other. On Sunday, Twitter's CEO tweeted, "X is the future state of unlimited interactivity centered in audio, video, messaging, payments/banking, creating a global marketplace for ideas, goods, services, and opportunities." Back to you.
All right, Stephanie, thank you so much for that. So the Barbie movie showed the power of pink at the box office over the weekend. It raked in a record $155 million, becoming the biggest opening weekend for a film ever directed by a woman. The old record was $153 million for the 2019 Captain Marvel movie. Oppenheimer also opened over the weekend. It brought in $80 million. I'm Veronica Cruz. For the audience leaving us right now, your local programming is up next. Thanks so much for spending some time with us. Don't forget that you can always check us out on scripsnews.com. Now, if you are staying with us, we have much more news that heads your way right here on Scripps News Live. We will be right back.
Do you spend hours maintaining your gutters? Save that time with LeafGuard's maintenance-free system. Call 1-833-2-GUTTERS. Mesh filters sit on top of your gutters, building up debris and eventually clogging. Then they need to be cleaned too. Honestly, your home should have been built with LeafGuard gutters. LeafGuard's wraparound hood deflects debris and keeps water away from your home. The one-piece seamless system is strong, 20% thicker than average, and built to last. Plus, LeafGuard is guaranteed to never clog for as long as you own your home. Right now, get a complete LeafGuard system for only $99 down, $99 a month, and $99 installation. You'll also receive a $100 Visa gift card with a free gutter inspection and in-home estimate. Damage from clogged gutters can cost you thousands. Never worry about clogged gutters again. Don't wait, you've still got time. Call 1-833-2-GUTTERS today. That's 1-833-2-GUTTERS.
Municipal bonds don't usually get the media coverage the stock market does. In fact, most people don't find them all that exciting. But if you're looking for the potential for consistent income that's federally tax-free, now is an excellent time to consider municipal bonds from Henyon & Walsh. If you have at least $10,000 to invest, call and talk with one of our bond specialists at 1-800-465-8465. We'll send you our exclusive bond guide, free, with details about how bonds can be an important part of your portfolio. Henyon & Walsh has specialized in fixed income and growth solutions for 30 years and offers high-quality municipal bonds from across the country. They provide the potential for regular income, are federally tax-free, and have historically low risk. Call today to request your free bond guide. 1-800-465-8465. That's 1-800-465-8465.
Hey there, welcome to Scripps News Live. Great to see you on a Monday. I'm Veronica Cruz. Let's get you caught up right now in the day's top stories. Israel's parliament approved a key portion of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's plan to overhaul the country's justice system. Before the vote, opposition lawmakers chanted, quote, shame, and then stormed out of the chamber. The opposition leader called Netanyahu, quote, the puppet of messianic extremists. Conservatives have argued that the court has too much power. Russia is calling out Ukraine for drone attacks on Moscow and Crimea. It says a drone that fell near Defense Ministry headquarters hit two buildings. The one in Crimea struck an ammunition depot, and it stopped traffic on a major highway and nearby train tracks. In the meantime, Ukraine says 4 people were injured when Russian drones destroyed a grain hangar and other depots in southern Ukraine. Elon Musk has changed Twitter's Bluebird logo to an X. The X is a common theme in Musk's other companies like SpaceX and another financial startup called X.com, which is now known as PayPal. Musk is also limiting the number of messages unverified users can send in a day, and they can send more by subscribing to X. Well, 7 companies, including Google, Facebook's parent company Meta, and Amazon, are all committed to developing technology to ensure that AI products are safe. Eric Waxler with Scripps News Tampa says University of South Florida researchers have been doing their own AI work.
USF Assistant Professor John Liccato says humans have never seen an advance like artificial intelligence before. He and others in the Advancing Machine and Human Reasoning Lab are working on how to get AI to understand language better. He says he's seeing 2 very different reactions from the public when it comes to the power of AI systems like ChatGPT.
Unwarranted paranoia on one side, but also the exact extreme opposite, right? Where some people think, well, this technology is not going to affect my job at all, and I don't have to pay attention. I think, both of those reactions are probably incorrect in some way.
Tech giants like Amazon, Meta, Google, and Microsoft are working with the White House to come up with regulations for artificial intelligence that include security and transparency with the public and the testing of their products before they are released.
Something's necessary, but it is very easy to see how they can overdo it and completely stifle innovation.
Larry Hall is a professor at USF's Institute for Artificial Intelligence. He says some sort of regulation is important. One example would be detectors or watermarks to let people know when something is created by AI.
There hasn't been enough probably focus on that piece of, making sure that what you see is real. Enough research on that. I think that's probably something that we really need to do. It doesn't seem so exciting, but I think it's for society really important.
At USF, they say they are ramping up their AI department with the hope of helping businesses, the government, and the military in our area. Some critics say big tech companies still need to do more to show what data they are using to train AI models. President Biden is expected to eventually sign an executive order for AI regulation, but officials say the final details are still being worked out.
I'm Eric Waxler for Scripps News.
One of the many expected benefits of passing the Bipartisan Inflation Reduction Act is the U.S. government being able to negotiate some prescription drug prices with manufacturers for Medicare. Now, previously, drug makers have been allowed to set prices in the U.S. at the time of a drug's launch. But other countries around the world are able to negotiate on the basis of benefits provided. By allowing Medicare to negotiate some of these high-priced prescriptions, millions of Americans could see significantly lower prices.
A third of Coloradans and a third of Americans don't take their drugs the way they're supposed to. Those drugs that they're going to negotiate, they'll probably be those really high-cost drugs. About less than 2% of drugs are so expensive. They're consuming about 50% of the prescription drug spend.
So Medicare and Medicaid will be publishing a list of the first 10 drugs selected for negotiations. That's going to happen on September 1st. But the pharmaceutical industry is trying to stop this from happening. Last week, Johnson & Johnson became the fourth drug maker to file suit, claiming that the drug pricing section of this new law is unconstitutional. Lawrence Gostin joins me now. He's a professor at Georgetown University. He's also the director of the O'Neill Institute for National and Global Health. Professor, thanks so much for your time today. Tell us more about this fight with the drug makers and how the Inflation Reduction Act could actually lower drug prices for older Americans. In terms of the legalities here, what exactly is at stake?
Well, I mean, there are huge consequences, Veronica. America spends more for the same drug than virtually any other country. And you might want to ask the question, why wouldn't Congress want to save taxpayers' money and make life-saving medications more affordable for patients? But the claims are really right in this, trying to appeal to the sweet spot of a very conservative Supreme Court. For example, claiming that drug negotiation somehow is a taking of their property, meaning their intellectual property, without just compensation. And so they literally just, the companies seem to want to be able to set their own prices, and they don't want to negotiate with the biggest buyer of drugs in the United States, and one of the biggest in the world, which is Medicare.
So essentially what you're saying is, on the legal front, what is at stake here is the Fifth Amendment, or the taking of a company's IP or their intellectual property. I'd like you to expand on that, and then also talk about what's interesting here with the strategy that the pharmaceutical industry has been tackling this with lawsuits, because they've been filing lawsuits all across the country in different courts.
They have. I mean, basically, the pharmaceutical industry is throwing the kitchen sink at this. They're filing lawsuits in multiple jurisdictions around the United States. They're doing it on multiple legal theories, the Fifth Amendment being just one, due process of law being another. But essentially, what they're trying to do is to create a lower court split, so that some courts rule for the government, some courts rule for the pharmaceutical industry, particularly conservative lower courts. And they want to get it up to the Supreme Court as quickly as they can, because they have confidence that a 6-3 conservative majority will favor their business interests over consumers' interests. I hope that's not the case because, as I say, I think that most Americans would want to pay a fair price for life-saving medications and a price that's not way above that which, Canadians or people or the British or the French pay.
But why is that? You said very specifically at the very beginning of this interview, you said Americans spend more for the exact same drug than other countries spend. Why is that? I've often heard that it's all because of R&D. It's all because these U.S. companies are paying for the research and development of these drugs. Is there any truth to that?
Well, of course, there's truth to it, but it's also true when they sell to governments in Canada or Mexico or Japan, all of whom pay less. Yes, of course, they do want to recoup their research and development, but negotiations aren't going to bankrupt these companies that make billions of dollars worth of profits. I'm not one that likes to trash talk the pharmaceutical industry. It's a wonderful industry. I wouldn't want to be without it. I absolutely don't want to cripple it, but it makes no sense. We live in a capitalist country. We live in a society that has the right to pay reasonably affordable prices for their medication. And all other countries pay a lower amount than we do. And they do it in two ways. One is they negotiate. They're big, like the National Health Service in the UK will negotiate with drug companies, the same drug companies that we want to negotiate with now through Medicare. And then others just have an essentials medicines list, and they will only put certain cost-effective drugs on that list, won't pay for others. The bottom line is that we pay much more for drugs, we pay much more for healthcare than other countries, and we get much less. That can't be right, and there's got to be a solution. And I do believe that Congress has the power, in fact, it has the duty to be kind to taxpayers and kind to patients and, come up with an affordable but reasonable price that's a win-win for both the pharmaceutical industry and for American patients who are dying.
So I understand that this could essentially end up in the courts, but I would like you to explain how the Inflation Reduction Act was supposed to bring the cost of a lot of these drugs down and whether or not that specific legislation goes far enough.
Well, it doesn't go far enough, but it's a very, very good start. Throughout our history, Medicare has been, the great giant in America in terms of healthcare. It spends an enormous percentage of our national budget and our national health budget, which is already very, very high. And Medicare is basically an entitlement program. So if a drug company wants to charge X, even if it's an extraordinarily high rate, an exorbitant rate, Medicare has to pay for it. So what the Inflation Reduction Act says is that for a certain number of drugs, presumably high-priced drugs, Medicare is going to be able to negotiate with drug companies for a fair price, the same way we negotiate for wages or negotiate for anything else. It's supply and demand. And so that seems to be reasonable to me. As I say, it's a first step because it only applies to a small number of drugs that Medicare will buy. But ultimately, we'll soon find out whether this is a model that works well for the American public. I think it is a good model, and it fits in with the way we think about American society, which is one where consumers have rights as well as companies.
Professor Gostin, before I let you go, I've got 30 seconds right here. You were saying that this is a good start. Is there anything else that you have, I mean, you've obviously thought a lot about this. Is there anything else that the U.S. could do right now to bring not just the cost of pharmaceuticals down, but just the cost of health care down for Americans?
Well, I teach this subject, and other countries, they'll set national health budgets, they'll negotiate drug prices, they'll only pay for certain drugs that are really highly cost effective. But every country in the world has a mechanism to keep costs down reasonable. In the United States, there are no such mechanisms. And so we need to create them. We need to have a society that provides better health care for the entire population, including life-saving medications, and all at an affordable cost. We really can do this without harming our health system, but only improving it. I'm a big believer that Medicare can be the driver of high quality, lower cost care for the United States.
All right, Professor Gostin is the director of Georgetown Law School's O'Neill Institute for National Global Health Law. Professor, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate your insight on this.
Thanks, Veronica. Take care.
Coming up next on Scripps News Live, mixed reactions pouring in right now for the FDA's recent approval of a new Alzheimer's drug. What's been driving concerns surrounding this new drug? That's next.
I don't want to take medication. Wow. It's so refreshing to find a doctor who gets what you need. Especially for a post-pandemic hypochondriac who watched one episode of a medical show with my mother and now gets all sweaty and weird around doctors. So, should we move on? Great. Good.
How often do you exercise?
Dr. Stafford just kind of speaks your language.
Search, read reviews, book a doctor on ZocDoc.
This year, Americans will spend $41 billion on auto repairs.
That's right, billions with a B. Why is that number so high? Because cars break down. Your vehicle is going to end up in a shop like this too, and if it's no longer under warranty, you're the one who has to pay the bill, and it could cost you thousands of dollars. That is, unless you call CarShield. With a plan through CarShield, administrators will pay for those costly repairs directly to the mechanic of your choice, including dealerships. That means you get protection on major parts and systems like the engine, transmission, electrical systems, and more. Plus, 24/7 emergency services for flat or damaged tires, lockouts, dead batteries, and towing at no additional cost. And there are even rental car options to keep you on the road.
I've been a mechanic for 35 plus years now. I've seen thousands of repairs over the years. My happiest customers are the ones that come in do have some kind of auto protection policy that's going to cover the repair that they wasn't expecting anyway. I feel great about recommending CarShield to everybody I see.
CarShield has a rich history of dependability, reliability, and success, and has been featured on leading networks like ABC, CNN, Fox News, and more. CarShield is America's most trusted auto protection company.
My mom told me to call CarShield, and I saved $5,000. You should always listen to your mom.
As soon as my car broke down, CarShield jumped into action, and I had my car back within days.
I've been with CarShield for close to 7 years. I have 3 vehicles covered, and I saved close to $9,000.
I called CarShield and saved over $5,000.
Yes, CarShield is a good value. Every plan through CarShield comes with a price lock guarantee, which means no matter how many repairs you need, the price you pay today will never change for as long as you cover your car.
Call now and save money with your price lock guarantee. It's not a matter of if your car will break down, but when. Call CarShield now before it's too late. Call 800-287-5264. 800-287-5264. 800-287-5264.
My anxiety became overwhelming. Like, I need help.
I just found hers. Like, this is pretty incredible.
Right away, I got matched with a provider.
I noticed a huge difference.
Medication brought me all back together. Get started today at forhers.com.
The why is where curiosity is intentional. Because when you ask the why behind the news, the world opens up before your eyes. The Why, Saturday nights at 8, 7 Central, only on Scripps News.
Well, a new Alzheimer's drug is offering hope for patients and caretakers. Studies show Leqembi slows the progression of Alzheimer's up to 27%. And while there is a lot of excitement around this research, there are also concerns about the drug's safety and accessibility. Scripps News correspondent Chris Stewart has the details.
It's estimated more than 6.7 million Americans over the age of 65 have Alzheimer's. It's a disease that right now has no cure, and it impacts entire families. But there is hope with the development of new drugs that are proving to slow the progression of Alzheimer's down. But at the same time, there are questions about whether those who are most at risk of developing Alzheimer's will have fair access to this new medicine.
I love this one, the story behind it. We had a father-daughter night with my princess. It was supposed to be for small kids.
These pictures represent some of Sylvia Waller's most cherished memories with her dad.
So we get there and he said, "Why are we the oldest here?" And I said, "Well, it's a night with my princess." And I said, "I'm still your princess." And he said, "Yeah." So that was the last night we danced.
Roughly 2 years after this night, Waller's father, James, passed away from Alzheimer's in 2017. An only child, she took care of her dad until his death.
It was a tough one because the roles had changed. I was no longer his baby girl. I was his caregiver.
There was no approved Alzheimer's treatment for Waller's dad, but she says the FDA approval of Leqembi offers hope. The treatment is a twice-a-month IV infusion for patients who are in the early stages of the disease that's been proven to slow Alzheimer's progression by as much as 27%. Waller does worry about access, especially to those in the Black community, which is twice as likely to develop Alzheimer's compared to those who are white. Experts say health issues like higher rates of heart disease may play a role, but research has yet to identify a cause.
News is exciting that we're now in a treatment phase, and yay, but then there's a wah, wah, wah.
A big concern is the price. Medicare will cover most of Leqembi's cost of more than $26,000 a year. But the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services tells me patients will still likely have to pay 20% of the cost, which is more than $5,000. Add that to the total out-of-pocket costs of caring for an Alzheimer's patient. The Alzheimer's Association estimates it to be on average more than $238,000 from diagnosis to death.
The majority of the people who have Alzheimer's are on Medicare, and they're not the 10% or the 1%, who have money, have a great retirement fund.
A lot of tests are not available in Spanish, so a lot of my cognitive tests I have to pull from Mexico or from Spain.
I met with Fabian Consbrough. He's a clinical psychologist outside Denver who works closely with the Hispanic community, which is 1.5 times more likely to develop Alzheimer's. He puts patients through cognitive tests that can lead to a diagnosis.
What's the moment like when you have to tell a patient that they have Alzheimer's?
That is just as bad as giving someone a cancer diagnosis, because it's a terminal disease. This is the disease they're going to die from.
For as difficult as a diagnosis may be, he says getting help also can be hard because of the several steps and medical professionals dementia patients often need to meet with to get treatment. He worries Leqembi will be out of reach for many of his patients.
Not only do they need to get the diagnosis, they need to get the referral back to the specialist or back to their primary care doctor. The provider has to be caught up on the medication and feel comfortable with that medication.
Leqembi is meant to treat those who are in the early stages of Alzheimer's, which Jim Herlihy with the Alzheimer's Association of Colorado says makes access important.
And every day, 2,000 people advance to another stage of the disease. So having access to these medications right now is critical for those people and their families.
In 2022, with Alzheimer's awareness as her platform, Waller won Mrs. Colorado.
At the time, I was like 60, and I've learned that no matter how old you are, you continue to grow.
She says while new drug developments are a major step forward, making sure people know the signs and symptoms are an important part of the fight against a disease that still has no cure. Chris Stewart, Scripps News, Denver.
Coming up next on Scripps News Live, long-lost siblings finally meeting after nearly 80 years apart. We'll have their story for you next.
I've been putting off getting life insurance, and I'm not getting any younger.
Have you been thinking about getting a life insurance plan but just keep putting it off? Was that a yes? Then this message is for you. I'm David Denowitz, and I know the importance of life insurance. And that's why I'm here to tell you it's not too late to get the coverage you need.
If you're between the ages of 45 and 85, you can get a policy with a benefit of up to $25,000 and rates available at $5 a week. The phone lines are now open. Just call 800-354-6059.
And your acceptance is guaranteed.
I have a pre-existing medical condition. Is my acceptance guaranteed?
Yes.
Can I get accepted without a medical exam?
Yes. If you're between 45 and 85, you can't be turned down for this guaranteed acceptance life insurance regardless of your health. Plus, there's no medical exam and no health questions. And rates start at just $5 a week. Remember, if you're between 45 and 85, you can't be turned down regardless of your health. Nothing's more important than family. So call now, pick up the phone, and get guaranteed acceptance life insurance today.
Just call 800-354-6059.
I'm 72 and on a fixed income. Is my acceptance guaranteed?
Yes, your acceptance is guaranteed and your rate can never go up for any reason. You can't be turned down regardless of your health. There's just one simple question. Are you between 45 and 85? If you answered yes, don't wait another minute. Call now.
The call is absolutely free and there is no obligation to enroll. Just call 800-354-6059. That's 800-354-6059.
It's time to break up with your old glasses and switch to the last glasses you'll ever need. It took me forever to upgrade my glasses because of how expensive it is, but Pair Eyewear is changing the game when it comes to glasses. They offer interchangeable tops to switch out to fit your mood, and because of their super affordable prices, you can get multiple pairs for a fraction of the price. It's super easy to order and have them delivered right to your front door. The only problem I have now is deciding which frames to wear. You know you need an upgrade, so go now and find your new favorite frames with Pair.
Hey, I'm inside the bank. What? I don't have much time. Where's the $500?
I said drop your bank and get Dave. The banking app.
What?
There's an easier way. Oh, she going to jail.
You can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less when you download Dave. Join renowned journalists and filmmakers.
Oh my God.
For news stories every week.
What else do we have to take?
Scripps News Showcase. Sunday nights at 9/8 Central on Scripps News.
Well, it took a deathbed confession to make a 90-year-old man's birthday wish come true. Jake Weller with Scripps News Kansas City shows us how he reacted to this gift that he has been waiting for decades.
Happy birthday to you.
On his 90th birthday, Ralph Earl Britz of Leawood, Kansas, has a gift he always dreamed of.
All these years I've been brought up as an only child, and wouldn't it be wonderful? Because I always wanted a brother and sister.
And he wanted to solve a family mystery that surfaced 15 years ago.
I was trying to get a passport and get my birth certificate because it had been lost.
The birth certificate revealed that his father was actually a stepfather, a revelation that made him wonder about his true lineage.
So I said, was I adopted?
Ralph's daughter, Lana, sent his DNA to 23andMe.
It absolutely was looking for a needle in a haystack.
A break came in the form of a deathbed confession. In 2020, 78-year-old Roberta Best of Raytown, Missouri, was saying goodbye to her ailing mother.
The day she passed, she told me that my dad had a child before he married her.
Roberta's family went to 23andMe as well, and it didn't take long for the pieces to come together.
My grandson, he called me and says, Mimi, I think you have a brother. I think we found your brother.
Finally, the two siblings who grew up mere miles away from one another met for the very first time.
As he was walking up the sidewalk, I looked and I said, I don't need a DNA. That's my brother. He looks too much like my dad. So it's just really amazing.
It was meant to happen eventually.
The brother and sister reuniting is healing old wounds and bringing new life to the two widowers.
I've lost my husband and he's lost his wife, Maudie, and we can kind of keep each other company. He comes over and takes me out to lunch, and just we talk constantly about things in our past where we're getting to know each other.
and beginning an adventure together, long overdue in their golden years.
Sis and I, we're going to travel and do some things together. She might not know it yet, but we are.
So what have we learned, kids?
It's never too late.
No, well,
to have family. I guess we're just very fortunate that we found each other.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
Very.
Yes, they are. What a gift. I'm Veronica Cruz. Thank you so much for joining us today. For the audience leaving us right now, your local programming is up next.